The mic is muted. All right. Okay. So you should be able to see the, let me just, okay. YouTube is now live streaming, so that works. All right. Welcome to the first virtual class for MTD201e. And as usual, the first thing we want to start with is to look at the theory. Okay, let me just stop this live stream. Okay, I know the live stream is now working, so I don't have to listen to myself. Okay, so let's take a look at the theory first. All right. So the past couple of weeks, we learned the first week we learned about introduction of Blender. We learned about the history and then what Blender 3D is capable of doing. We also learned about basic computer graphics and the fundamentals of computer graphics. And last week, we really delved into the edit modes or the subcomponent modes of Blender. And we didn't really cover much on curves. Now, curves are a very important part of Blender or any other 3D programs for the matter, especially in other programs like Maya. They are using another type of curves called NURBS curves. These curves are used a lot in engineering modeling. Another popular 3D modeling software like Rhino 3D also use a lot of curves to actually help in creating profiles of models and to help you to model faster and much more efficiently. Now tonight, we're going to explore the use of using Bezier curves, specifically in Blender, to create especially circular or cylindrical items like bottles, cups, pots and pans, or even teacups. Okay, so but before we start to use, we need to understand what are Bezier curves and where they came from. Right, so okay, let's see. Now, Bezier curves are not new. They've been around since the 1960s, and they are actually invented, or rather created by this mathematical formula by this guy here, Paul de Castelliau. I hope I pronounced his name correctly, and then popularized by another Frenchman, Pierre Bezier. And Bezier curves was used all the way back in the 1960s to design automobiles for Renault. Okay, way back in the 1960s. So now curves, these types of curves, you can find them in vector 2D drawing programs as well. You can find them in Photoshop. You can find them in other 2D graphics software as well. So these type of curves are actually not new. They've been around for a very long time. Okay. So we used polygons to create our objects. We've already learned how to create primitive polygon objects, but we haven't really take a look at the curves in Blender. So for curves, you can use the Bezier curves to draw very complex outlines. Okay, and the way the curves are being edited in Blender are also a little bit different. Okay, so these are all in your study guide. So if you want to get more details, you can just refer to it. Now, we first have to talk about the terminology of the curves. So when you create a curve and you go into the edit mode of a curve, you will find something known as control handles. And also they have vertices as well. But that's about it for curves. And for these arrow lines you see over here, these are the normals of the curves. And also curves can come in, can flow in a certain direction. So as you can see in this curve that's indicated by this arrowheads, the curve is actually flowing in one direction. Now, the way the direction of a curve flows will change the look of the surface when you create the surface from the curve. Okay. Now, the point or the part between two vertices are known as a section, a curved section. All right. And a vertex by itself, of course, is a single vertex. And within a vertex itself, you will have two control handles. All right. When I fire up Blender later on, you can have a closer look at it. Okay, so these control handles, when you select and move it, you can change the shape of the curve. All right. And the handle type can also be changed. Okay, later we'll go through the different handles and you will see how it affects the curve. Okay, let's take a look at applications. Now, these are two models which I use curves to help me to create the model. Now, of course, the final model isn't made of curves, but the curves themselves act as a guideline for me to snap my polygon surface onto. So curves can be a very useful modeling creation tool, right? So you can see all these dark lines on this car that I modeled here, right? These lines are actually acting as snapping points for the 3D mesh. And actually, I have to convert these curves onto a 3D mesh object first before I can do that. So let's take a look at the other applications. Now, this is a older method which I used to create a cylindrical object. Now, I will still show you this method. And although I'll consider this method obsolete, but it is still good to know, all right? You can actually use two curves and you can use a bevel object function to create a cylindrical object, and in this case, a wine cup, right? And of course, you can also use it to loft a different object, okay, to create a object with different cross sections, just like this example here, right? Now, along in the same vein as curves, there is a very powerful add-on called B surfaces, which I would want to show to you guys. Now, B surfaces, how does it work? It involves using different curves, or actually curves from duplicated from the same curve and then modified. And then a polygon surface is created by sort of lofting between them. So this is a very quick and easy way to create very organic looking curved surfaces. Now, I have actually created a tutorial on how I use this tool, the B surfaces add-on, to create a body of a jet fighter. So you can actually check that video out later on. Okay, so in quick summary, we know that the Bezier curves are quite powerful modeling tools, and they can be just like a polygon. They can be edited and shaped in edit mode. And the add-on, the B surfaces add-on, really increases the modeling capability of Bezier curves, right? Now, for tonight's lesson, I anticipate that we will cover the Bezier section quite quickly. So we are going to have plenty of time left for tonight's lesson. So I'm going to use the extra time to show you how I would approach to model the frog for your TMA assignment. Okay, so I'll reserve that towards the end of this lesson. So let's jump straight to the 3D program itself. Okay. Okay, I have to jump to collaborate. Okay, I hope everybody is are able to hear me fine. Okay, if you are not able to hear me clearly, please please type a message here and let me know. Okay, let me just stop sharing and let me just switch the sharing to Blender itself on Collaborate. Okay, for those of you who are using Collaborate, okay, if you are using Collaborate only, okay, you might not see the keyboard shortcuts that is floating above here. So those of you who are using YouTube live stream, you should be able to see everything here. Okay, you should be able to see my entire desktop. Okay, so let's just start from right from the beginning. So later we are going to try to create these objects here. I'm just going to reset the scene here. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the default cube and I'm just going to create the first curve object. So now to create the first curve object, the basic curve, all you need to do is just press Shift A, and then you have the add menu, and just go ahead and go to curve, and let's go and create the first type of curve. Now for tonight, we are just going to take a look at the Bezier curve. The rest of the stuff like NURBS, curve, NURBS, circle, and path, I'm not really going to look at it. Okay, so I'm just going to create a Bezier curve. Now, when you create a Bezier curve, you notice that the curve is actually lying flat in the 3D space, especially if you view it from the top view. Okay, it's just lying down flat in the top view. And if you press 1 to go to the front view, you notice that it's just a straight line. Now, for some of you might find this a little bit odd. The curve is actually lying down, but once you get used to it, it's actually not too difficult to figure out the orientation. Now, let's just start from the top view and take a look at this curve. Now, this curve is just an ordinary curve that goes down. There's a slight bend on it. And we can't really do much with it other than moving it and rotating it. Okay. I'm just pressing R and then rotate it 90 degrees so that now it is facing me in the front view. And we can scale it and so on. So how do we change the shape of this curve? So to change the shape, you have to go to edit mode. So to go to edit mode, you just press tab. Now, once you press tab, you notice there are several things suddenly appear. In fact, if you toggle between edit mode and object mode, you can see in object mode, there's nothing there, but in edit mode, several new items appeared. Okay, so the first item that is very obvious are these red bars. Okay, these are the control handles. And how many vertices does this particular curve have? This curve has 2 vertices. Now, you must learn to tell the difference between a vertex and a control handle. Okay, so this is a control handle. This one in the center is the vertex. You can select the vertex. You can rotate the vertex by pressing R. You can grab the handle. You can move them around. Okay, and by moving it around, you also change the shape of the curve. Okay, so I'm going to grab this handle now. I'm going to press G, and then I'm going to start to move the handle. And you notice that the shape of your curve will start to change. All right, so if you select the vertex, both the handles will automatically be selected, and you can rotate them, you can scale them, and so on. And of course, you can move them to change the length of the vertex. Okay. Now, what if you want to extend? You want to create additional sections. Okay, if you remember from last week, if you want to increase or you want to increase the number of faces, you just press E to extrude. Same thing for the curve. All you need to do is just press E, and then you can extrude another section. However, you notice something interesting. You notice that the handles, the control handles of each of these extrusions will follow the same orientation. So you might have to manually rotate to get the shape that you want, and you have to like move the curve and get it into the shape that you want, right? So what is the easier way? So let me, and now to delete the vertex, all you need to do is just select and then press X and delete away the vertices. Okay, just press X and then delete away the vertices. And now we're back to the same curve again. Okay, now how do we prevent, like every time when I extrude, I get this same orientation? Okay, so in order to prevent that, you can change the type of control handle that you want to use. And remember that I mentioned earlier on, like you can actually change the control handles. To change the control handles, you just press V. Change the handle type. Now, if you want the curve to be much more flow automatically, then we're going to choose automatic. Now, notice now the color of the automatic handles have changed. The usual color is actually this pink and red color, right? But automatic has this yellow tinge towards it. Now, when you press E to extrude, you notice that now the automatic will automatically rotate the control handles for you so that it can create a nicer or rounder looking curve. Okay, this is especially useful when you want to draw a nice and round profile. All right. So once you're done, okay, then you can just simply exit and then get out and go to object mode. Okay. So what about getting rid of, or let's say inserting an extra vertex between these 2 points? Okay, sometimes for some reasons you want to do some fine tuning, you want to adjust, you want to add another point here to pull it out. So how do you do that? While you're in edit mode for a curve, you select the 2 vertices between these 2 vertices. You can press B and box select, drag a box. Okay, press B and then left mouse click and drag a box and release so that these 2 vertices are selected. Okay, and then you press W. Now W is known as a specials key. Now, and also it's context based. When you press W while you're editing a polygon object, the menu items will be different. And in the case of editing a curve, you'll notice that the items here are different as well. Now, the item that I'll use quite a lot is this subdivide. So when I select 2 vertices and I press W and I click on subdivide, what it does is it adds another extra vertex or vertex between the lines. And then when I press G and move it around, I can use that to fine tune and change the shape, the curve that I want. Now, early on, I mentioned about changing the handles into an automatic type. We haven't really checked the other types that's available. Now, if you press V again, you'll notice that I can change it to vector. Okay, notice that when I change to vector, it changes into this slightly green color. Now, for vector to be much more apparent, you need to select 2 sections, okay, 2 vertices, and press V and change them both to vector. Now, you'll notice straight away, they become straight lines. In fact, let's try pressing A a couple of times to select all the vertices, and then I'm going to press V, and I'm going to change it to vector. Now you can see it very clearly now. Vector just simply means I'm going to change this into a straight line. Okay, sometimes for some reason you want to create a hard looking edge or a hard looking profile, you might want to use vector. Okay, let's try another one, aligned. Okay, so aligned is actually the default handle type. In fact, when you create the curve for the first time, you are in the align mode. So what align simply means that if I move one handle on the left side, the other handle is aligned and it will move the other side. Okay, so that's what the line stands for. Okay, let's select this vertex and press V, and I'm going to change it to free. Now, free means that the handles are independent. You can move each of the handles freely, as the name suggests. Okay, so that's what it means, free. Okay, and then finally, there's another one, which is toggle between free and align. So if you press V, you can switch between free and aligned. Okay, press V again. Okay, so now if you choose that option now, it becomes aligned again. All right. So that's what the function does. Okay, so now we know how to create and draw curves. So let us use this new knowledge to create something that is recognizable. All right. So I'm going to get rid of this default curve. Okay, I'm just going to press X. Now, take note of these 2 little windows on the top and bottom here. Now, for those of you who are on Collaborate, you will not be able to see the shortcut keys. So I recommend that you turn on your YouTube live stream so that you can see what are the shortcut keys. Or if not, you can go back to the YouTube live stream recording and watch the entire video again. Okay, so these 2 windows here will indicate which keys I press and what are my mouse buttons that I'm pressing, whether I'm wheel up or down, and then what keys I'm pressing at the moment. Okay, so let's start by creating a curve. Okay, I'm going to create a Bezier curve, and the default Bezier curve, as I've mentioned, is always lying down flat. Now I'm going to show you the old method of creating a cylindrical object. Okay, so let's create something that is recognizable. Let's try to create something that's easy first. Let's try to create a bowl. All right, let's try to create a bowl. So if I switch over to the front view by pressing 1 and then pressing 5 to go to orthographic, you notice that the curve is lying down flat. Now I want the curve to face me, so I'm going to press R followed by X because I'm rotating the X axis, and then 90 and press enter. So now the curve is facing towards me. Then I'm going to go to edit mode, press tab to go to edit mode. And you'll notice that both the vertices are selected. So I hope you still remember that this orange dot here is the center of this curve. Okay. So by default, every time you go to edit mode, all the components are selected. That means all the subcomponents are selected. So right now I'm going to edit this curve and I want to change it into half a profile of a bowl. So I'm going to grab the handle. I'm going to push the handle, this handle here, this vertex rather, and then I'm going to push, put this vertex upwards like that. Then I'm going to grab this handle, press G, and then pull it down. Then grab this handle and put it this way, right? And if you want, you can actually grab this vertex, then press use scale SX0 to flatten it. And then you can grab this handle SZ0. So now we have a curve that looks like this. Okay. Now, how do we convert this into a bowl object? Now, there's more than one way to do this. So I'm going to show you the old way which I used to do this. I'm going to change to my perspective or orthographic view. And then I'm going to create a circle. Okay. So go ahead and create a circle, a curved circle, not a polygon circle. So Shift A. Now, if you accidentally move your cursor to another space, remember to press Shift C to move the cursor back to the origin. And press Shift A, go to curve and choose circle. So right now we have a Bezier circle curve. Now what we are going to do is to use this circle as a you can think of it as a spinning tool, a revolving tool to spin this other curve around. Okay. Now to access these functions here, you can select this curve first and then go over here. Now, if you look at the object properties section over here, you'll notice that there is this tab that allows you to change how your curve looks. Okay. Now, if you zoom in really closely to your curve, okay, I'm going to go in very, very close to the curve. You notice that the curve is actually made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you can actually see the number here, 12. It is actually made up of 12 sections. So if you want your curve to look finer, you can actually increase the number of segments. But we are going to stick with 12 for now. So I'm going to reduce it back to 12 because when you increase this, then this object here, the resulting mesh object is going to use up much more polygons. So we're going to now create a surface using these two curves. So now we have the Bezier curve and then we have the Bezier circle. So I'm going to select the Bezier curve and then I'm going to use the bevel object as the Bezier circle. So let's just try that first. We see what happens. Okay, right now what happens is this. Instead of my profile spinning around, now the circle is actually being extruded out to form sort of a pipe elbow. So that means I should do the beveling the other way around. So let me just press Ctrl Z to undo it. So what I did was wrong. What I should have done was to select the circle. Okay, and then go to your curve tab and then under the bevel object here and then pick the Bezier curve. So now you can see I start to have this object. Okay, but you notice that it doesn't really form a bowl. In fact, it formed this odd looking shape that looks sort of like a egg cup. Okay, so how do we fix this? All right, so you can fix this by going to edit mode of the profile. Okay, let me just go to the front view. and then I'm going to edit mode, and then I'm going to press A to select all the handles or vertices, and then I'm going to move them left and right until the end of the curve reaches the center line here. Now, sometimes you notice the handles can be a hindrance, and all these arrow headlines, headlines can be blocking you. So what you can do is you can actually hide them by pressing N while you're in the viewport window. Press N to go to your viewport properties. You scroll down under the Bezier curve display. You can hide the handles, and you can also hide the normals. Okay, but of course, if you need to edit the curve, you definitely need the handles. Okay, but sometimes in this case we need to hide the handles so that we can see whether we are forming the shape properly or not. Okay, so you can actually move this further until we seal up the hole. Okay, like so. Okay, so now we have our basic looking bowl, but this object is still not usable. We can't really edit this object because this object is still being treated as a Bezier curve. So we need to apply a command to it to convert it into something usable. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this object by simply pressing Shift D, okay, duplicate the object, and then I'm going to press X so that it locks in the X-axis, and then I can move it aside. Now, these objects, okay, these objects are still linked to the original curve, okay, and you can actually select the point and edit it, okay. You can change the shape of your profile and then come up with different shapes. So this is one of the good things about using this method to create this cylindrical object. However, if you want to edit it further, for example, if you want to add a handle or you want to add some thickness to this bowl, we need to convert it into a mesh object. Okay, we're still in edit mode, so I'm going to press tab to get out of edit mode. And then I'm going to select this duplicate. I want to keep this so that I can edit this later. So select this object and apply this command, Alt-C, Alt-C, C for Canada. So Alt-C, and then you want to choose Mesh, okay, Mesh from Curve. You want to create a mesh object from curve, and let's do it right now. And it appears that nothing has happened, but what has happened is that this object right now has become as you can see, a mesh object. And if we go to edit mode, which I've done by pressing tab, I can actually go to each of these individual faces to edit it. Okay, I can press E to extrude this and then maybe form a handle. Okay, let me just undo that first. A face that is pointing more towards this direction. Okay, maybe this one. Okay, then holding down the control and then just create, let's say, a very rough looking handle. Okay. So, but you notice that having such a object with so many faces and so many vertices is not a very good way to start off with your modeling. So that is why I'm going to delete away this and start over again. Now remember the curve resolution under the curve properties, you can actually reduce the number. So I'm going to reduce the number of the U shape. So as I reduce, you notice that the resolution become less and less and less. Okay, until all the way to 1. So you see it becomes a square bowl. So actually, you're good to go with only two segments in the U section here. And for this vertical curve, okay, let's duplicate this one. And let's convert it into a mesh object. And you can see, although the number of faces are reduced significantly, the number of faces in the vertical end is still quite high. So how do we reduce that? Now to reduce that, we have to choose the curve itself, profile curve itself. We can reduce that down even further as well. Okay, 2 maybe is a little bit too low. You notice when we reduce it to 2, this is what the curve looks like. When we increase it to 3 or 4, okay, maybe this is much more manageable. And then we can duplicate, Shift T, duplicate another piece. I did the wrong piece. I meant to duplicate this. Shift T. Now, when I go to edit mode for this object, oh, okay, have not converted into a mesh object yet. So the command to convert this bowl into a mesh object is Alt-C, and then convert it to mesh from curve. And then you can see the number of faces is reduced way much. But then you might ask, I want it to look round and smooth. So how do I do that? Now, last week, remember, I taught you about the subdivision command. We can actually subdivide this by applying a subdivision modifier, okay, which you can access by clicking on this this tool tab here, add a modifier, and then you apply a subdivision surface. And then you can increase the amount of subdivision until you get back almost the same shape as before. Now, the reason why we use subdivision is because we do not want to edit massive amount of faces. So remember, when you are modeling, you want to try to reduce the number of faces while at your early stage of modeling. Okay, because it is much more difficult to edit something when you have way too many faces. So this method which I showed you is somewhat the older method which I've used to create my teapots and my glass and all my cylindrical objects. Okay, so the much more updated and newer method that I prefer to use right now is using another modifier for the curve, okay, which I'm going to show you right now. Now, if you want to know more about this method, you can watch my tutorial on how to model a teapot. Okay, but I'm going to demonstrate that to you guys tonight on how to modeling a teapot, but not using this method anymore. I'm going to use the newer, somewhat improved method. Okay, so I'm going to delete this. Okay, I'm going to keep this curve. In fact, I'm just going to start all over again so they can see the process of creating the curve and modifying it into a usable profile. So Shift A, create a Bezier curve. I'm going to remember, when you create a Bezier curve, the curve will always be lying down flat, pointing up towards the sky. So if you press 7 on your number pad to go to the top view, you will notice the curve looks like this. So for me, I tend to like to work in the front view. So I want my curve to face me. So I'll select the curve, I'll press R followed by X and then 90. Now, of course, this is optional for you, but if you want to model something that is standing upright, okay, this is the step that you can do. All right. So now I want to create the a curve, a profile curve. So I'm going to create this time something more fancy. I'm going to create a wine glass. Okay. So I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to grab the all the handles, all the vertices. I'm going to push them to one side. Okay, and I'm going to start to edit this curve. Okay, grab the handles and I'm going to change this handle, pressing V into automatic. And then I'm just going to roughly draw an outline of a wine glass. So I'm going to put this flat down first. Now, if you imagine the look of a wine glass, okay, we first have to model the base of the glass. So I'm going to press E to extrude a small section first, then press E again. Okay, then press E again to create the stem. Then create, okay, maybe another section here. Press E again. Then press E again and then move your cursor so that it moves up. Press E again and then you want to continue downwards to create the walls of the glass. And then I'm going to press A to deselect. So I've created the outline of my wine glass. Okay, but before I spin it around using the screw modifier, I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to tweak this profile a little bit. The first thing I want to do, I want to hide these normal lines. So I'm going to press N, and I'm going to go to the curve display, and I'm going to hide the normals because normals are quite distractive. Then I'm going to go through each of the curve handles, and I'm going to tweak, okay, the thickness of my wine glass bowl. And I also want to maybe change this into a free handle. So I can really fine tune the look of my wine glass. Okay, you can use rotate. Okay, maybe this one I will change it to automatic and reduce the size. So I get a much more gentler curve here. So using this method, you can use it to create bottles, vases, pots and pans, and so on. Okay, so if I go to edit mode, I can inspect my handiwork. So for this to work, you must make sure that you use the blue axis line as a center line. Okay, and make sure the center, the pivot of this object is right at the center as well, so you don't move it around. Okay, so next we want to apply a screw modifier. So with the curve selected, go right ahead and add modifier. And you notice the amount of modifiers available for curves are much less compared to a mesh object. So I'm going to apply screw. And you notice that, why is this a circular disc? Okay, because we need to make sure that we are revolving or spinning in the correct axis. So in this case, let's go to the front view. It is, if you look at the screw modifier, the default axis given is the z-axis. So I do not want it to spin in the z-axis. So I want it to spin in the y-axis. So let's change to y. Okay, you notice it's a little bit odd. Why is it? It should be spinning the z, but how come I need to change it to y? Because we are spinning it according to the object's own axis. So remember, we actually rotated this object. When we created the curve is lying down flat. So when we rotated it up, the z-axis now is pointing towards me in the y-axis. So that's the reason why I need to change this axis. But it doesn't matter. You can, if you encounter this, you just need to change one of these axes, okay, until eventually you get the correct axis. Okay. And let's see, if your cup, the material looks a bit odd, like for me, I recognize that this color means that the normals are pointing the wrong way. If you look at the screw modifier, you can actually enable this calculate order. That means you can recalculate the order. You can flip it as well, so that the surface looks proper. Okay. Now, if you press Z to go to wireframe mode, you can also see the amount of vertical segments, okay, you have on this cup. And if you want to make it simpler, all you need to do is to reduce the number of steps. Okay, and then the cup will become simpler. And then remember about the curve profile. If you can select the curve, or rather the mesh profile, if you go to edit, and I'm going to change this to 8, you can select the curve, and then you can go to the curve properties and reduce the number of vertical steps in the curve properties. And then you can really simplify the look of this cup. Now, is this cup a mesh object? Okay, I don't require you guys to answer this. Okay, but actually no, it is still not a mesh object. We still need to apply the operation where we convert this into a mesh object, because this is technically still a curve. Okay, so to convert this into a curve, we apply the Alt C. So before I do that, I'm just going to duplicate this. So Shift D to duplicate, and then press X to move this to a side. And then I'm going to convert this one into a mesh object. So I'm going to press Alt C. The window will pop up, convert mesh from curve object, and then just click on it. And then just press Tab. And then you can see now I can edit this as a mesh object. And again, if you want this to look rounded and smooth, okay, all you need to do is just to press Control 1, 2, or 3 to apply the subdivision smooth modifier. Okay, for those of you who cannot execute the Control 1, 2, 3, you can always go to the Modifier tab, Add Modifier, and then apply a subdivision surface. And we still get back the same smooth look of the original wine cup that we have created. Okay, so using this method, we can create the wine cup. And I think this method is slightly faster compared to the older method. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate this one more time, but let's create something else. Okay, I'm going to create a teapot, okay, using this method. Let me just put this. Okay, now if you have objects in your scene and then you want to hide them, you can actually go to your outliner here, and you notice that there are these eye symbols here. So you can click on these eye symbols to hide them. Okay, so to just temporarily hide them. So I'm hiding those cups or wine glasses. So I'm going to start all over again. I'm going to press Shift A, and then I'm going to create a basic curve, and I'm going to create a teapot, right? So as usual, I like to create my teapot facing me. So I'm going to go to the front view by pressing 1. And make sure you're in the orthographic view. If you're not, press 5 a couple of times until you reach front orthographic view. Press R followed by X, then press 90 for 90 degrees so that the curve faces you. So now we're going to create the lower portion of a teapot. So we're going to create, well, we're going to modify this curve so it looks like a teapot. So I'm going to show you a different way of creating the teapot. So I'm going to select all the components first. You can press X so that it travels along the X-axis. When you press G, okay, and then I'm going to press S followed by Z and then 0. This is just to flatten the curve. And I'm going to hide the normals because the normals are really obscuring my curve. Then select the end vertex. I'm going to change this one into a automatic. And then I'm going to press E to extrude the body of the teapot. Okay, I'm going to ignore this portion for the time being. Okay, and then press Enter. Actually, I don't have to press Enter. So I actually want to create the cover. So what you can do is that you can continue to extrude another portion to form the cover of the teapot. And then the handle of the teapot right at the end here. Okay, so this looks nothing like the teapot yet. So again, we need to, this is in edit mode, in object mode. So we need to tweak the curve so that it looks like the profile of a teapot. So press Tab to go to edit mode. Then grab the handles and start to edit the teapot. You can also select, right now I realize my teapot is too wide. So I'm going to press B to select these screw vertices and then move them in a little bit. And to remove section, you can actually select these two vertices, okay, press X and delete segments. So you notice that now I've created two curves because I deleted the segment or the space between them here. The reason is because I want to convert this top section of the curve into a teapot cover. Okay, so right now I'm just tweaking the handles. Now, one thing about 3D modeling is that if you are modeling something that, like for example, right now I'm thinking, should I model the walls of the teapot? Now, should I give it a thickness? If you are modeling something that is transparent, then yes, you must give it some form of thickness, like let's say it is made of a transparent glass material. Then yes, you have to model the inner wall as well. But if you are not modeling something that is transparent, that means it's going to be opaque. Then you can skip that step. But for this example here, I'm going to create the wall. But rather than drawing the entire inner portion here, I'm going to show you a trick which you can quickly create the wall. Now, for example, I want to select this section here. Now, if you were to select all the vertices one by one, if this is a complex curve, you're going to spend a long time clicking the curves one by one. So I'm going to show you a very quick way to select what we call a linked object. Now remember, we already broken this curve into two curves. The upper curve, which I want to create the teapot cover and the teapot handle, and the lower curve, which forms the teapot main body. So these are two separate curves at the moment. So I know that I can actually select them quickly by simply using the linked command. Okay, so what is the first letter of linked? Is the letter L. So in order to make this work, move your cursor close to the curve that you want to select and then just simply press L. And when you press L, you notice that only the linked curves will be selected. So this is very, very useful. So right now, all these curves, you press L, okay, just to the nearest curve. You can press G and move it around just to confirm that you have selected the curve. Then right mouse click, it will snap back to its place. And press Shift D to duplicate another curve and it will be identical. Okay, so while it's still being selected, you can press X to move it back slightly. And then you can press S so that it can scale it inwards slightly. And of course, then you can select these curves, these particular curves here manually, and then just move it in so that you form the inner wall. Okay. And what if you want to join these two together? Now we have this wall. Okay. But there is a gap here. So to join, you just simply select these two ends here and you just fill them up or to bridge them. So to fill them, you just press F. F will actually close up a gap for you. Okay, now I need to tweak this so that it formed a nice wall here. And right at the bottom here, we do not need to close up these vertices. We need them to be open. We just need them to be right at the center here. So I've created the wall for the teapot. But what about the cover? With the cover, I can do the same thing. Okay, press A to deselect first. Then move the cursor over to the top curve. Press L. Then Shift D again to duplicate another curve. Okay. And this time I'm just going to manually move it offset. Okay. And press S to scale it down slightly. For this, I have to manually move some of the control handles. So it forms the inner walls of this teapot handle, or rather the teapot cover. Okay. So now I'm going to select these two vertices And then I'm going to press F to fill it up. Okay, and then grab these handles and then just them again. And then make sure that these two vertices are lined up. So you can use the scale method to line them up. Select these two vertices, press S to scale, and then followed by X, then 0 to line them up. And then you can move them to the center. So right now, I have the curves created. You can see the upper curve, which forms the cover, and then the lower curves that form the side of the teapot. So now we can finally apply the subdivision modifier. Oh, sorry, not subdivision modifier, the screw modifier. So go to Add and apply a screw. Okay, again, we need to change the axis to Y. And then we're going to flip, click on the flip in the screw modifier properties. And then we have this shape here. Okay, now our curve, right, in the original curve has a lot of segments, so I don't need so many vertical segments. So I'm going to reduce the step down to maybe 4 is a little bit too low, maybe 8 will be just nice. Okay, and then what about the curve itself? You need to go to the curve property and reduce the resolution of the curve. Okay, not too much though, maybe 3 should be fine. And now we are ready to convert this into a editable polygonal object. Okay, so to do that, we must use the command. Does anyone remember? No. Just to pay attention to check whether any one of you is listening. Do you know what's the command to convert this curve object into a mesh? Can anyone type out the answer? Okay, just go ahead and type out the answer. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not reading the comments. Okay, I'm only starting to look at the... Okay, very good. It's not Shift C, it's Alt C. Yes, Paylin, you got it right. Okay, so it's Alt C, very good. Okay, apologies to those people who applied the... who sent me a message here because I was so concentrated on the demonstration. I'm not actually looking at the comments. Okay, so I'm seeing right here. Okay, so now, in fact, I think I got a pause soon to check with you all to see whether you have any questions. So anyway, let's continue. Yes, it's Alt C. So as usual, if you want to modify the shape of the teapot later on, usually we will just duplicate and so that we can come back to the curve and modify it again if the need arises. So right now, I'm just going to press Shift D to duplicate and then press X so that I have a duplicate. So this original, I can still mess around with it later on if I want to. Then, as you mentioned, it's Alt C. That's correct. Alt C, convert mesh from a curve. So when you go to tab, and then now you can see we have a mesh object that we can select faces and we can edit. And we actually have a separate cover, which we can actually press L. Okay, if you move, okay, press A to deselect. Now I'm in edit mode for this teapot now. If you move your cursor over to the top handle, and because of the way that we drew the curve earlier on, we can simply just press L and we can uncover the teapot. And if you can see, because we created the walls inside, we have a very nice internal wall inside this teapot. So using this screw modifier, I feel that it is a much more efficient way to create an object like this. Okay, so remember, the teapot cover, when you create it like this, can only be separated or rather be moved when you use the L command to select the top linked faces. Now, if you want to make this to become a separate object, you have to press the letter P. Okay, press P to peel it off. Okay, to make it become a separate object. Okay, so let me demonstrate that. If I press tab, okay, you notice that this is a single object. Okay, if I press 2, tab to go back to edit mode again, press A to deselect, and if I press L over the linked object, now this linked object is now selected, I can press P and then I choose selection. So now we have two separate objects. Okay, so now the cover is separated and the bottom part of the teapot is separated. Okay. So now, how do we make this teapot look nicer? Because right now you can see it's quite low resolution. It's not rounded. Okay, you just apply the subdivision modifier. Just go here and apply subdivision surface. Okay, or on the keyboard, you just press Control 3. Control 1 just gives you a lower resolution, then 2, and then 3 gives you a higher resolution. So now you can see we have a nice looking teapot, but the teapot doesn't have a spout. It does not have a handle. So how do you go about making the spout and handle, which I'm going to show you now. Okay, this teapot, I'm going to push it aside first. And this one, I'm going to push it back to the original origin location. So if you scroll up to your viewport properties by pressing N here, if you look right at the top, you can actually enter the numbers here to bring it back to 0. And because my teapot cover is also a separate object now, I can just press 0 and then bring it back. Now, I want to highlight to you one of the numbers here on the top right-hand side in the transform values here. Now, remember, you notice that the teapot is actually rotated 90 degrees. Why is that so? Because remember, this teapot originally wasn't a mesh object, it was a curve object. And remember, our curve was lying down flat. And I had to rotate it 90 degrees so that it faces me in the front view. So if I want to reset this into 0 degrees, that means I want this to be the standard orientation of this brand new object that I have created. So how do I change this value into 0? I mean, if you type 0, you will start to rotate this teapot into this angle here, which is not what you want, right? So how do you reset this? Now, I want you all to remember this command. Okay. Write this down. Control A. Control A. What does Control A do? Control A resets the object's transform values. Okay, that is the best way to describe what it is. Now, in another 3D program called Maya, which I also teach, they call it freeze transformation. All right, so every time you scale or rotate an object in object mode, for example, if I were to scale this object, you can see the scale start to change. All right, and you want to change it, you want to set everything back to the default 0 and 1 again, especially for rotation and scale. You have to freeze the settings again or reset the transform values again. So that's where this Control A comes in. When you are editing an object, my recommendation is that you do not scale when you're in object mode. Try not to scale your object in object mode. If you want to preserve the object's original scale, you do it in edit mode. But however, if you have no choice and you need to scale and change the scale of your object in object mode, you need to set it back to 1 again. And especially for rotation, if you rotated your object and then you want to set it back to 0 again while maintaining the new orientation, just remember the command is Control A. Okay, applying Control A, you can choose. Okay, I'm going to apply a rotation and scale, even though my scale is 1. So I'm just going to apply rotation and scale. Now you notice the rotation now is set to 0. So that means the object's own local axis has been reset again. So remember, this Control A is a very powerful and useful function, especially if you're doing character animation. For those of you who are doing 3D animation later on, okay, you will need to apply a Control A to your object, okay, before you start to apply bones or do any parenting to your object. So remember this command. Okay, enough about Control A. So now, how do we convert this into a teapot? Okay, so to convert this into a teapot, I'm going to first go to edit mode, and I'm going to find out which are the best faces which I can extrude and form the teapot. Now, looking at this object, especially from the top view, you notice that we have a challenge here. We want to choose a face that is flat and that is oriented to the x or the y-axis. In this case, indicated by this green line, y-axis, and the red line, the x-axis. But we don't have any face that is lined up, that is perpendicular to these lines. So what do we do? So we have to rotate. Okay, so we go to edit mode and we're going to select all the faces. And then I'm just going to manually rotate. Just simply press R and rotate. And you can rotate and you can see what is the angle, what is the best angle to rotate this to. And if you look at the lower right hand corner of your viewport, you can see the numbers there. And it appears that the best angle is 22.5. Okay, 22.5 seems to be the best angle to get the faces facing flat in the axis. So I'm going to just enter the value. So 22.5 and press enter. Right. So now, if I go to edit mode, object mode again, it doesn't really affect the orientation. Okay, I think I've pressed undo too many times. So, but at least now my faces are now facing the right way. Okay, I'm going to press Control A and apply the rotation scale. So now I have faces that is lined up facing the x-axis and the y-axis. So now, depending on which axis that you want to work with, for me, I normally work on the side view, okay, which is number 3. So I'm going to choose one of the faces here. Okay, I'm going to enable this limit selection to visible. So I can select this face on the side here. And then I can start to extrude. Okay, so this is the face that I've selected. So let me go back to my side view. And then I just simply hold on to the control key, left mouse click, and left mouse click to create the handle. And next, I want the two faces here to join together. Or actually, maybe this face and this face side to join together. Right. I want to show you a very powerful tool, which is called the bridge faces, meaning that if you want these two faces to connect, okay, you can just simply use the specials key. Okay, the specials key, remember, is always W. Okay, and then you can choose this bridge edge loops, and you will just join the faces together. Okay, and then your handle is done. Okay, although we need to do some tweaking around here. Okay, let me undo and show you one more time. Okay, so go to the side view. Once you rotated the teapot, then to extrude, you just hold down to your control key, move your cursor away from the face and the direction that you want to extrude, left mouse click to extrude, move further away slightly, left mouse click again to create another section, move the cursor downwards, left mouse click, and then you want to create another section here so that you can link it up to this face here. So now you can decide whether you want to link it to here or here. So I'm going to shift select this bottom face, and then I'm going to press W and apply the bridge edge loops right in the menu. Okay. Now in the past, I would have used a different method. And if you watch my older tutorials, what I will recommend is to just delete away the faces, okay, until you have an open hole like that. Then switch over to edge and select this edge and then press F. Then select this lower edge and then press F. Then select this upper and bottom edge and press F. And you notice there are so many more steps involved. Before the tool appeared, okay, in these current, especially this, previously, we do not have that tool, this bridge edge loop. But right now we have this bridge edge loop and it's very, very helpful. Okay, so now we have our handle. What about the spout? Okay, for the spout, we just need to find out where are the faces that we want to pull out to form the spout. So in this case, I'm going to select two faces right in front here. I'm going to turn off the view clipping, and maybe I want to choose the bottom In fact, let's choose 3 faces. Okay, that will give us enough faces, right, to form the spout. And again, going to the side view. Now for this spout, I'm just going to extrude only once. So go over, move your cursor right to the top here, holding down the control and left mouse click. Okay, then we see we have this gigantic face here. So we can press S to scale it down. Okay. And we can insert one more edge loop around here to tighten up the edge loops here. So we can press Control R, left mouse click, and then move it up so we got a tighter looking loop. Okay. Okay, so now we got somewhat a weird looking teapot. Okay, we need to tweak it further. For example, this area here, we need to move the vertices or edges until they are rounded. So what I did is I just simply select the edges here, and then I just scale them inwards. And you can select the front face here, and then you can press E to extrude, then press S to scale, press E again to extrude, and then going to the side view here, if you press Z, okay, Z to view in wireframe mode, then you can push these selected faces back. And you can even delete away these faces because you don't really need them. You just need to have these faces. The faces are inside, so you can't see them. Okay, so now let's go back to the side view again. Make this teapot line up with this area here. And go back to press Z to go to wireframe. Press A couple of times so you deselect everything. Then press B, select these group of faces. And then you can rotate them and move it back slightly so that they are flat. Okay, remember what I told you guys about the face loops? You can select the face loop because these are 4-sided. And with the face loop selected, you can press S followed by Z, 0, flatten the face. Okay, so now we have this teapot spout here. Okay. And for those of you who have a 3D printer at home, you can actually try to print this out. Okay, now we have this weird section here that we need to fix. Now for this subsurf modifier, if you want to see the curves on the surface, you can actually click on this command here, this adjust to cage modifier length. Notice that now the lines seem to jump to the curved surface. This will actually make tweaking of this teapot a little bit easier. For example, I need to select these 2 lines and I need to move them up slightly so that I can round off this teapot. I can press S followed by X so I can scale it inwards here. And so now at least my teapot spout here looks a little bit better. And if your teapot handle is a little bit too thick, right, you can go to edge mode, holding down the Alt, right mouse click, Shift Alt, and then continue to select the edge loops, right, so. And then with all these edge loops selected, you can press S followed by X and then scale it down. So you have a much narrower, nicer looking teapot. Okay. Let me just a little bit further, and essentially the teapot is done. So the next thing you need to do is just to apply a material. Now at this stage I haven't really shown you guys how to apply a material yet. And since we have something now, I'm going to use this opportunity to show you how I apply a material. Okay, so I'm going to unhide the other objects that we've created. Okay, this is still a basic curve. This one is it a mesh object? No, this one. Okay, I'm going to hide the rest, the curves, and including this one as well. I don't need this. Okay, I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call this teapot. So you can rename by going to the outliner here and typing on the object that you selected. So right mouse click to select the object, double click, and then I've got this wine glass. And then this one is the teapot cover. So teapot cover. Okay. So I think it's a good time to show you guys some basic lighting and some materials. So I'm going to create a floor surface first. So Shift A and create a plane. And then go ahead and press S to scale it up. Okay, so now we have a floor surface. Okay, now if you want to see what the camera is seeing, you press on your number pad, 0. So this is what the camera is seeing. Now to move the camera around, I've shown you earlier before, if you look at the viewport properties by pressing N, there is this under the view section here, lock camera to view. Now some of you might find it easier to just enable this so that you can reposition your camera as if you are repositioning your viewports. So if any one of you find that this is easier, okay, I strongly recommend that you use this method to reposition your camera, your viewing camera, because if you want to render, this is whatever you render, right, is actually visible only in front of the rendered camera, the main camera. Okay. So to render the result, okay, right now we don't have any material. So if you want to see what the rendered objects look like, go ahead and press F12. Because we only have one light, so this is the look of the object, the basic look of the object. Okay, so right now there's no colors, nothing. Everything is just given this gray look. Now to exit from this view, you can just press escape and you'll be back to this 3D view again. So let's just apply some simple materials. Okay, for the floor, we are going to apply a simple beige material. Now, right now you can see there's no material being assigned. Where do you assign material? You assign material by looking for this material tab, and we're going to click on new. All right, and let's just give this a slight beige or brown color. Okay, and for this glass, okay, let's make it into a metallic glass. So we're just going to click on new. And instead of Lambert, a Lambert doesn't have a lot of very strong reflections. We're going to use a Miniert. You can also use Fresnel, but for now I'm just going to use a Miniert shader. And for the shading, okay, I'm going to enable mirror so that it reflects a lot. So I'm going to just increase the reflectivity a bit. Okay, maybe a little bit of Fresnel settings. Now, don't worry about all these settings. You will learn more about it in the next lesson. Okay, and maybe give this a slightly golden color. So we're going to create a golden looking metallic cup. And then as for this, I'm going to unlock the camera for a bit. And then lock it again. Now for this teapot, I want to create a glass material. So to do that, you have to create a new material. And then again, I'm going to choose Miniert, and Cook Torrance is fine for specular. I'm going to just increase the intensity, the hardness of the reflection, the specular. Also, I want to give it a mirror look. And then let's see. I'm going to enable refraction. I'm going to enable transparency and enable ray traced. IOR, I'm going to give it about 1.5. Again, don't worry about this. Okay. If you don't know what this is, don't worry about it. Okay, and then transparency. I need to give it some form of transparency so that it can refract light. Yeah, okay, now I got some transparency and reduce the alpha to 0. So this is almost a clear glass. The reflectivity, maybe bump it up a little bit more. And finally, let's give it a blue glass material. Okay, the blue glass is not showing up because of the transparency. I need to reduce the transparency a bit so that it will show up a little bit. Can give it some unique, different reflections on the specularity. Okay, now I want to apply the same material into this body as well. So go back to the material tab and then just click here, the drop down, and then apply here. Okay, so this is a very simple glass material and a simple metallic material that I've created. Then now I'm going to render again, press F12. Okay, so you can see because of the reflectivity of this material is actually reflecting quite a lot of the glass. And I have to reduce the reflectivity so that I can see some of the refraction that's going on. So I'm going to press F12 again. And maybe increase the transparency a little bit more. And reduce the reflectivity because reflectivity is a little bit strong. Okay, so you can see some refractions that is going on here. But what we see here right now, we are using the traditional Blender rendering engine. Now, next week, we will learn more about the different types of renderers. In fact, if you want to have a better looking render, okay, Cycles is the better renderer to use, okay, which is available here. Okay, but for materials, we'll cover it much more in detail next week. Okay, so this is just a quick preview of what the materials look like. And this is the way to create a teapot using Bezier curves. And I'm going to take a short break right now. Now it's about 8:15. Yeah, I've been talking continuously for 1 hour, 15 minutes. So we're going to take a short 15-minute break. And I'm going to set the timer right now. I'm going to run the timer. Let me just change the sharing view to Google in Collaborate. And I'm going to open up the class later for some questions and answers, Q&A. For now, I'm going to start a 15-minute timer. I'm running the timer now. So why don't all of you go and take a break, take a short toilet break, or finish your meals, or think about the questions that you might want to ask me, or any areas which you are not sure or you want me to cover again. Okay, so let me just see whether I can minimize this. Okay, I'll just leave the timer running here. So Okay, let's see now. Okay. You should be able to see. Let me just verify and check the stream is still working. Okay, it is. All right. So I'm not sure whether you're able to hear me, especially on the stream itself. Okay, if you're able to hear me, just drop a smiley on the room chat. Okay, let me just switch back to the Blender app again. Okay, good. All right, thanks for the response. All right, so there is a plug-in or a add-on in Blender that also uses curves that I feel that I want to talk about, and it is covered in my tutorial. Okay, so for this tutorial, right, you should be able to see it. If you Google for Blender Hawk modeling. So this is one of my videos where I demonstrate the use of this tool to create this jet plane. And I think that this is very, very useful if you want to use it to model complex shapes with different cross sections. Okay, the tools that I'm talking about is known as B surfaces. So B surfaces started out as a commercial paid only plugin, which has since evolved. I mean, after the creator, the writer of the plugin has earned enough, he actually released it and made it free for Blender. So now it comes with every copy of Blender that you have. So I'm going to show you how to activate it. I'm going to just delete this. I'm going to start with a new one, new file. Okay, I'm not going to save that because I've created all those things many, many times. So I'm going to get rid of this cube. And I'm going to show you how to activate this wonderful B surfaces tools. So go to File, User Preferences, open up your user preferences and under add-ons. You go and search for B surfaces. Just type BSUR, and then you will be able to find this B surfaces GPL edition. Just click on the checkbox to activate it. And then there's another tool that I want you to use that is called Loop Tools. Just type Loop and then click on the checkbox and then save user settings. So how to check whether your Loop Tools and your B surface is activated? First, I'm going to demonstrate how this B surfaces work. Okay, so for example, I'm going to start off with a curve again. So Shift A, create a Bezier curve. Okay? And I'm going to create several profiles of this curve. All right. So what I mean by that, you can go to edit mode and you can go and change the profile of your curve. Right now, I'm just editing this curve in perspective view. So for those of you who find it a bit strange, I think I've rotated this too much. Let me just undo that. I'm just going to go to the top view and I'm just going to change the profile of this curve here. Press W to subdivide this. So I got an extra vertex, then Shift, press V and change this to a I thought a automatic. And then I'm just going to, you can hold down to Control and then create a profile curve that looks like that. So right now I got one curve that looks like this in object mode. Okay, and I'm just going to flatten it. I'm going back and press A to select all. Then I'm going to press S followed by Z and 0 to flatten it. So now it's completely flat. Now, while in edit mode, I'm going to duplicate this curve. So to duplicate the entire curve, you just press A to select all the elements. Press Shift D, and then just move your cursor up. Now you can modify this curve into another shape, like so. Okay, and I'm going to press L and select this curve again. Shift D and then duplicate another curve, and I'm going to modify this curve slightly. Okay, so now I got 3 different curves. So I want to create a surface from these 3 curves. So how do I do that? Okay, first you need to create a mesh object. So Shift A, create a polyplane. Then select the curve object first. Shift select the polyplane and then go to edit mode. And then look to your tools panel on the left hand side, and you should be able to see this B surfaces tools. And to create a surface, you just simply add surface. Now, before you do that, you want to say keep the strokes. That means keep the lines. And then add a surface. And you notice that it will generate a surface based on these curves. Right now, you can see the resolution is very low. So you can continue to add on more faces until you get the resolution that you like. So this is really, really powerful, a great way to create very complex looking organic shapes very, very quickly. Okay. And now this one is not smooth. I'm going to smooth it out. Okay, and then if I press Control 3 to subdivide it, so you can create almost like cloth-like surfaces, okay, just from using these B surfaces. Okay, now I'm going to delete this and I'll show you another example. And start by creating a curve, a circle this time. So this time we start off with a circle. And I'm going to edit mode. I press tab to go to edit mode. Then I'm going to press Shift D, then press Z to lock in the Z axis as I move it up. Then press S to scale it up slightly. Shift D again, and then press Z to move it up again. Then press S to scale it down slightly. Press Shift D, duplicate, press Z to scale it up again, and so on. And if you go to front view, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to press Shift D, duplicate, and then I'm going to rotate it this way. Okay, and then Shift D again, then rotate it this way. And scale it down. And Shift D again, rotate this way, scale it down again. I end up with a shape that looks like this. Then Shift A and create my plane object. Scale it down. Okay, make sure you are in object mode before you create your plane object. Okay, so right now these are 2 separate objects. Okay, remember how I created these curves. I'm actually duplicating it while in edit mode. And select the curve, Shift select the plane, and then press tab to go to edit mode. Then add a surface. And then you can increase the number of resolutions until you get the shape that you want. So this is really, really powerful. Okay. So that is B surfaces for you. Now, if you want to know more, you can just Google for B surfaces. There are many demonstration videos showing you guys how to make the best use of B surfaces. All right, so I've covered as much as I can on the different uses of the Bezier curves. So right now, I'm going to revert back to the type of modeling that you guys will be doing the most. In fact, for the rest of the lesson now, I'm going to concentrate on the potential issues that you might face while modeling your or tackling your assignments. So I want to start early by talking about how you approach in modeling your assignment, especially the frog character. So I'm going to get rid of this. And remember, there's another add-on which I've activated but I haven't shown you guys yet. There is the loop tool, so I'm going to show you quickly what that does. So to create a cylinder, and I'm going to, it's a bunch of subdivisions. and just up. Now, if I scroll down to the bottom, I think my loop tools are not activated. I'm gonna reactivate them again. Add-ons, loop tools, seems that it is activated, so I'm just gonna save. Okay, so I'm gonna try this. Like for example, if you want to extrude a circular column out from the side of, say, this cylinder, you can select a bunch of faces and you can press E to extrude. However, if you Control 3, if you apply a Control 3 to subdivide, you notice that this doesn't look very round at all. So if you want it to be round, you can actually apply under the loop tools. Okay, where are the loop tools? There it is at the bottom. So you can apply a circle and you automatically arrange these faces into a circle for you. So that when you extrude, you notice that now, even in subdivided mode, this looks like a circular cross section. I'm going to extrude another section here, Control R, another edge loop here, and you can see the vast difference. So the loop tools, right, really gives you extra features to improve your modeling abilities. All right. So that's the loop tools for you. Feel free to explore the rest, but honestly, for me, the tools that I use most often is the bridging. Okay, bridging is very similar to what I showed you earlier on when I did the teapot extrusion. Like when I want to join one face to another, I'm going to select this face here. I go to wireframe mode, select this face, and then press Control and then extrude outwards. Earlier on, I showed you how to like join two faces using the specials key. Now, before that tool was available, okay, you have to use the face fill method where you have to select opposing edges. And previously, I have to use this bridge tool to accomplish the same effect. But now, this bridge tool is actually built into the specials. When you press W, the bridge edge loop tools is there for you already. Okay, previously, this wasn't there, I mean, a while ago. So in the later versions, right, all these tools are getting improved always. Okay, so that is the loop tools for you. I'm going to get rid of this now. And let's talk about the first assignment. Now, for your TMA, one of the assignments involves in modeling a character, okay, which is, in this case, the frog character. Now, in order to model the frog character accurately, first of all, you need to have the drawings. Now, the drawings, right, can be found on the internet. So I'm going to go to the internet. You can type the name Michigan Frog. That's the title of the character. And then you can see, you can get all these references. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you should be able to find the 3-view drawings. But unfortunately, I don't have the drawings here available now. So what you can do is you can go onto your TMA and then extract the images of the frog and then bring it into the picture here, okay, into the reference here. Let's see. I'm gonna go and try to see what I can find another character, because I don't want to show you exactly how to model the frog. Okay, so let's go and look for another 3-view drawing. Okay, I'm not seeing any 3-view drawings here. Okay, let me think of another character. Okay, there are a few examples here. I don't have the drawings here, and tell you what, I'm just gonna draw very roughly. Okay, using the grease pencil. There is a grease pencil tool here. I'm gonna go to the side view first, and I'm just gonna draw a rough shape. Okay, for the character. Okay, and okay, just gonna show you the theory behind it first. But normally I will usually bring in a actual picture, which I don't have with me now. Okay, I'll just start with the legs first. Okay, so normally we will have like the front view and the side view placed into your viewports. Okay, and you will start, okay, by, let me see this. I should not be able to, yeah, I shouldn't be able to select these drawings. Okay, we'll start by blocking out the shape first. So what I mean by blocking, you start off with a basic object like a cube. Okay, and position the cube right about the midway section of your character that you want to model. And using the symmetry tool, I'm going to split this cube into half using, go to edit mode, control R, left mouse click and right mouse click. So you split it exactly into half. Get rid of the first half of the cube. See how I select the first half very quickly. I select one face, then shift control number pad plus to increase the section. Press X and delete away the faces. So I have exactly half the cube. Then I apply a symmetry modifier or mirror modifier. And I can start to do my blocking process. I'll start with the cube first and go to edit mode, but I'm going to use vertex and I'm going to enable this selection to visible so that I can select the vertices behind. Press B, select these vertices, press G, and then start to block out the body shape first. Okay, go to the side view. The D slide and then press B to box select the front vertices and then to get the rough shape out. Okay, so you keep moving the vertices until you can't really move it anymore. Okay, then it is time for you to insert more edge loops. I'm going to insert a couple more edge loops, control R, give it a couple of edge loops. Now go to the front view, A, press B, and grab and select. A, press B. A again to deselect, press B, and drag a box over the selected vertices. you'll notice that I'll always press A and press B, then box, drag, and select. This is to move them into space. I can't really move this anymore. And perhaps I want to insert a couple more edge loops down across this side. Maybe one for now, okay, because I do not want to now to make it look rounder. I'll just push this inwards slightly. Okay, so I'm blocking the basic shape of this character. And now I can start to form the legs. Okay, to do the legs, you go to edit mode. Select the bottom two faces here, and press E to start to extrude. Okay, press S to scale it in, so you can make it look a little bit narrower. Press S followed by Z, then 0 to flatten it. Put it down here, then press E again to extrude. Every time you extrude, it is always a good idea to start to shift and move your vertices. So I'm going to A and then select the vertices, move them into place. Now, when you are in vertex mode and you select 4 vertices that encompasses a face, Blender will recognize that you meant to select this face. So this is very helpful. You don't need to switch to face mode, and you can still press E to extrude. So now I can extrude, like for example, the foot portion here. And then I can select the front face and then press E again to extrude the front of the face. So now I start to have the foot done. Now what about arms? Arms can be done the same way. You can select the face that you want to form the arm. Then you can press E. Now normally when you press E, the face will extrude outwards from the normals. And if you want to flatten it in the world axis while the face is still being selected, press S followed by X, then 0 to flatten. Okay, and then in your front view, you can just move it to the location that you want. Okay. So what we are doing now is that we are just blocking the shape out. Okay, let me just hide the grease pencil for now. Then you can see we have the basic shape done already. If we press Ctrl 3 to subdivide this, it actually looks quite reasonable. We are having the basic shape of the body coming out, and we can tweak further. You can also continue to model while it looks like this. Now for your assignment, right, the frog head is like literally it doesn't have any neck, so you can just extrude. Be careful when you're extruding using a mirror, because when you extrude, right, you want to avoid having this central faces, which you need to delete away. And if you have this kind of gap in the center, you need to select the open gaps, and then you need to close it up. Now in the mirror modifier, there's this thing called clipping. You can enable clipping so that when the center touches each other, they will stay together. Okay, so this looks nothing like the frog that we are trying to model, but I'm going to try to see if I can extract and download the image. Okay, let me give me a second. Let me see whether I can find the image first. Okay, it seems I only have one good drawing over there. I'm probably going to use the drawing on top there as a demonstration. I'm not going to show you guys the drawings I have over here. Okay, I'm going to use this one. All right, and let's click on View Image. And I'm going to save this image. Unfortunately, I don't have the side view of this image. So I'm going to save image. I'm going to save it as a PNG. That is fine. I'm going to put it on the desktop. Okay, so now I have an image to work with. So that'll be much better for me to create the target frog. But take note, I want you guys, when you're doing your assignment, right, to model the frog according to the pose that is described in the TMA, right? And then again, if you have downloaded the TMA, you should be able to extract the images and put them into Blender. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. I'm going to delete away this fella and just start from a brand new scene. Now, to bring in an image into Blender where you can use it to, okay, someone is putting the image on the link. Let me check. Can I access this? Unfortunately, wait, let me just see whether I can copy the link. Okay, one of you have provided me the link. I'm going to see if I can download it. If I can download that image, then it'll be much better. Ah, excellent. Thank you very much. So yeah, this is the image that I'm looking for. So I'm going to save image as... Okay, great. We have this image. So you use this image as a starting reference. And I'm going to show you how to bring it into Blender. Thank you, Lim Anchi, for finding the image. So I'm going to press Shift A. First thing you want to create is to create a empty, right? And not just any empty, but an image empty. Okay, so once you created the image empty, you want to bring in the image to display on this empty. So go right ahead. Click on the empty properties. Okay, there's this tab here, the empty properties. And right at the bottom here is this open folder or open file button. Just click on it. Locate the image. And then you'll notice that the image is now being brought into Blender itself. However, right now, the image is very small. And I wouldn't recommend that you model with such a small reference. Normally, what I'll do is that I will scale the image until it is really big. Okay, and I will offset it so that it is right at the center. I'm gonna duplicate several copies of this later on and use this as a reference. Okay, so you can use the offset to adjust. I'm going to offset it to about 0.5 in x-axis. And now I can rotate in the x-axis and then 90 so that the reference is facing me in front. Also, I want to reduce the transparency so that I can see through the grid lines. Okay, so this is excellent. Now I can manually move this until the front view is facing me in the front. Like for example, if I press 1 on the number pad, and if I press number 5 on the orthographic to change to orthographic, then I'm going to apply, move the reference until my front view. Okay, you see my front view is now being split exactly into half. Okay, so now we got our front view. Now let's position our side view. So we don't have a side. I mean, we don't have a plane to represent the side view. So we need to duplicate this. So press Shift D to duplicate, and we're gonna change this into a side view. So let me just undo again. I'm just gonna Shift D and then press Y so that it will be locked in the Y-axis. Then press left mouse click to take it out. Press R followed by Z, then press 90. I notice the frog is facing this direction. Now I want the frog to face the other direction. So I'm going to press RZ180 again. So it's facing the other direction. So that's the direction that I want it to face. Now press number 3 in your side view and position the frog until the blue line cuts the reference into half. Okay, then push this all the way to the side like that. So now we have the front view, we have the side view. We don't really need the back view, so we can ignore the back view. Okay, so because this is not a mesh object, we're going to leave it as it is. We can't actually delete this away. You just take note that when you press number 1, you're modeling in the front view, and you press number 3, you're modeling in the side view. Okay, so now let's start to do the modeling. So make sure that I think they should be aligned, because yeah, they should be in the same height. Okay, let me just verify again. The most important is that the front view, the frog has to be cut right in the center, because essentially we're going to model the frog from a cube. So we'll start off with a cube. So Shift A, we'll start off with the cube, and then we're gonna bring the cube up and position it until it covers the majority of the frog. And again, because we need to start off with half a cube. Now take note of the orientation. If you are trying to follow this video example, please take note that the orientation is matched mine this way. The X arrow is pointing this way, the Y arrow is pointing back, and then the Z is pointing up, right? So press tab to go to edit mode, press Control R, left mouse click and right mouse click, so that the loop cup is perfectly in the halfway point. Okay, change your point of view by middle mouse click and drag. Press Control tab, switch to face selection mode. Right mouse click, select this face. Okay, Control number pad plus to increase selection. Press X to delete away the faces, so that you end up with this half box. Then apply a mirror modifier, and then you're ready to start to model. Okay, so press Control. Actually, before we add any more edge loops, we have to block out the shape first. Okay, so to block out the shape first, you can go to wireframe mode by pressing Z. Press Control tab, go to vertex mode, and press B, drag a box over the corner. Press G, and then start to model your, or block your frog shape. Okay, we already got the front view. So we start off by modeling his V shape. Then we go to the right view. Press A to deselect. Press B again to select these group of vertices and move it back. Press A to deselect. Press B again. Select the front vertices and move it forward. Well, actually, in retrospect, I think it should be like this, because I'm going to like extrude out his mouth outwards this way. Then for his back, just push in like that. Okay, so because this is just a simple shape at this moment, so when you are starting to model, you start off with the least number of vertices always first. And every time you add any more edge loops, then you must move the vertices. Do not add too many edge loops right at the beginning. This is one of the first rules that you must learn about 3D modeling. Okay, now we can insert extra edge loops. So press Control R, and then perhaps we give about 2 edge loops here and left mouse click. Okay, you don't have to slide them. You want to keep them evenly spaced, so right mouse click so that they stay there. Press A to deselect. So while you're in vertex mode again, press B, grab these vertices and start to move them into shape. So your side view, and then move your vertices. Notice how I press A to deselect, then press B, drag a box over the vertices. Press A again to deselect, then press B, then press G to move the vertices. Now you'll be doing this over and over again in quick succession. All right. Now, some of you might find that, oh, switching between front and side, right, might be a bit too tedious. So what you can do, you can split your view into two and change one of your views to the front view, so you can see both views at the same time. And you don't need to see the tools panels, so you can press T to over the viewports to hide them. So at this stage, we can start to increase more edge loops before we start to extrude his extremities. So from the top here, actually, I want to insert one edge loop, maybe just one edge loop here, because I do not want to extrude upwards. Okay, and I'm going to press A to deselect. Press B, select these top row of vertices and pull it up. Press A to deselect, select the top row of vertices, and then pull these up. Press A to deselect and grab the corner and pull it down. Press A to deselect and so on. And now I'm just blocking shape out first. And then maybe perhaps here, you can choose to extrude, but the bottom face, I'm switch over the face mode, you can select the bottom face here, and you can press E to extrude. But take note, when you extrude, you create something called a central face. You need to delete away this central face. If you do not delete it later, when you apply a subdivision, you're going to have some issues. So go ahead and select this central face, press X and delete away the face. Okay. So we have enough extrusions. Now you can see the rough shape of the frog is coming up very nicely. But as I've mentioned earlier, every time you add in extra detail, you must shift the vertices. They don't have the temptation. I already switched to vertex mode at this point. Now I'm going to move the vertices into place. Over to the front view. A to deselect, select this group of vertices, and I don't know, just move this one right over here because I want to extrude the face, or rather the legs, to come out from this angle here. And right now, I realize the side view of, okay, let me go to the solid view. The side view of this frog there's not enough faces or to pull out the arms. So I want to insert one edge loop that run across here. So I'm going to press Ctrl R and then insert edge loop. And then that's it. I have an extra edge loop here. And again, every time you insert an edge loop, you move your vertices. Okay, I'm going to use the color line as a guide to match the frog. Okay. And as for his mouth area here, this area could use another extrusion. So what I can do is I'm going to select this face, and maybe I need to extrude, but just by looking at this reference, I need to have another edge loop across here so that I can create this sort of beak-like face. So Control R, I want to insert one. Now, okay, I come to a state that where I need this area to be rounded a little bit. Right now, if you take a look at it, especially from the top view, you notice that this corner is very harsh, it's very, very hard. Now we know that the frog is a very rounded shape. We do not want to have the corners here looking so sharp. So I'm gonna, before I add another edge loop, okay, I'm going to follow this rule, that is to soften the corners. So you can either do this using your vertex, okay, and just move it in. Now there is this very useful tool called edge slide. If you press G twice, you'll be actually sliding along the edge. G, and then you are sliding along the edge. So what you are doing here is that we are rounding off the corners. We do not want the frog to have a very hard edge or a very hard perpendicular corner. So that if I were to subdivide this, if I apply a subdivision modifier, Control 3, okay, you notice that now the shape is much round up, especially at the corner area. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the subsurf modifier first, while keeping it simple while at this very low resolution. And now that I've rounded it, now I can proceed with adding another edge loop that runs across here. So I press Control R and insert one edge loop here. And again, I'm gonna follow my rule again. Press GG and hit rounder. GG, what GG does is that it moves the vertices along the edge. This is called edge slide. Pressing GG twice. All right. So now I have enough faces. I can grab the front two faces here to form his, I don't know, his snout, I guess. You can press E, and then you can start to form the snout. Okay, well, at the side view here, you can rotate this, and then you can press S followed by Y and 0 to flatten it, and S followed by Z to make it narrower. Okay, right now, the front looks about right, but however, here, I need it to be closer, need it to be narrower. So I'm going to select the edges here and push it inwards. Okay. So you can slowly see the shape of the frog coming up nicely. Now I'm going to close up this area. Now, remember, when you have a mirror modifier applied and when you select faces and you extrude outwards, you're going to expect to have faces being extruded inside as well. So if you press Z to go to wireframe mode and you press Control Tab and switch to face mode, you notice that there are two internal faces that needs to be deleted away. So I'm going to delete away the faces. Okay, go back to, press Z to go back to shaded mode again. And then now I can safely close up the gap. Okay, I'm going to use clipping in my mirror modifier so that I can close it up nicely. So far, I have the shape of the frog turning up nicely. Go to the front view. I'm going to press Z to go to wireframe mode and see how my shape is coming along. Switch to vertex mode, continue my tweaking, and everything looks okay. Perhaps right now, what I'm looking at here is the eye bump here. You can see the bump that's coming up around here. We need to insert an edge loop that runs across the center here so that we can create this bump. Okay, this section that separates with the two eyeballs. Okay, so I'm going to press Control R, and then insert an edge loop and maybe put it right about here. Then these two vertices here, the wireframe mode, I'm going to push them down. Because I have all these extra vertices here now, I'm going to grab 3 of them, and then I'm going to scale them along the x-axis, press SX0, and then while it's still being selected, then move them up. So as long as you keep the number of your vertices or number of your faces low, you can model this quite easily. Okay, just make sure you do not go overboard by inserting way too many edge loops in the beginning. And remember to select the faces and then pull them back to sort of create this rounded effect. You can also press GG to move multiple vertices along the edge at the same time. You see, I press G twice, then I can slide them and move them. Okay, try to learn to use the revolving method. That means we revolve to change your view and change and move the vertices. Now, some of you might find this a little bit challenging, but it takes practice. If you've been not doing modeling as long as I have, this will become second nature, right? All right, so we have the body of the frog blocked out. Now, for those of you who want, you can actually apply a subsurf modifier, and then you can see the preview of the frog body, and then you can sort of guess how the whether you're going in the right direction. So far, this looks fine. Okay, we need some tweaking to pull out the sides to match the drawing, but we can start with the limbs right now, the extremities. And again, I'm gonna just, in fact, I'm just gonna disable the this subsurf modifier first by clicking on the eyeball, and we are going to continue to pull down the legs. Now for the legs, this is quite straightforward. We identify which face will form the leg, and it is this face here. And we also noticed that Michigan Frog had this little bum here. So for his bum, right, we need to select strategically the vertices that will form his bum. I think this vertex will just do fine. You just pull out the vertex, and perhaps we just add another edge loop around here. Then we can sculpt up his little backside here. So Control R and then insert one edge loop here. And now we have the vertices to just simply pull out to form his bump. Okay, and if I turn on the subsurf modifier, I think I need to pull out a little bit more. Okay, we can create a nice little bump there. Okay, so now we identify the faces to pull out the legs. I think we only need about a couple of faces, which is these two here. And yeah, so it actually matches the drawing very well. So from the side view and the front view. Okay, so these are the two faces that I've selected that I want to become the legs. So go ahead and just extrude. Okay, it's going to follow its own normal. Just leave it be for now. And then I'm going to use the x-axis to flatten it. So press S followed by X and 0 to flatten it, and press enter. And press R to rotate until it is facing this direction perpendicularly, and then press G and then move it down. And we're going to move the selected faces down around the knee area, then press S to scale it down. Now press Z to go to to the shaded view, and then you want to check whether the faces are fine, or do you need to sculpt the faces by shifting the vertices around. Okay, and also use your side view reference. And you can see straight away, you'll definitely need another edge loop here so that you can push the thigh forward. Okay, we do not want this to be just a single extrusion here. All right. And of course, to give it some volume, you can select this vertex, press GG to push it out a little bit, sort of to inflate up the leg a little bit so that the leg has a little bit more definition. And go underneath and do some surgery here. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom and see the cross section of this face. Now, I do not want his face to have this squarish look. I want it to have more of a round look. So that's where the loop tools will come in useful. So I'm going to select these two faces, and then I'm going to open up my tools panel, go down to loop tools, which I've activated right here, and then I'm going to use my circle tool. And what this loop tools does is that it will reorient or reposition the vertices until you form a very nice circular shape. Now, when subdivide, this area definitely will become a circular cross section. So this really helps a lot. So now it is a circular shape. It will make extrusion of the rest of the parts much easier. So I'm going to maybe just rotate this slightly in the right view and just bring it up slightly here. And I'm just going to press E to extrude one more section down. Now for the thigh or the calf section here, I can just insert another edge and pull it out later on. So now we're just going to see where the foot goes, where his feet goes. All right. Now for the foot, you just need to extrude one tiny section here, because we are going to select any of the three faces here to be extruded out to form the foot. Okay, so I'm going to just extrude one small portion here, then scale along the individual fingers or the toes. Now we have all these three faces, right? We can select all the faces, and you can go to the tools panel here. Under the extrusion, you can decide to extrude either as an individual or region. Now, by default, it's always extruding by region. But since we want to create three feet or toes, we're going to use individual. Now, I'm seeing the side view here, and I noticed something that I don't really like. I do not want the toes to be pointing downwards. So while the faces are selected, I'm going to shift it up until His feet is more in a flat position, like so. You can also switch over the vertices. If you want his feet to be flat on the ground, press A to deselect, press B to select the bottom vertices, press S followed by Z and 0 to flatten the feet. And I think I want to flatten the top row of vertices as well. Press A to deselect, press B, drag a box over the top vertices, press S followed by Z and 0 to flatten. So now I know that my feet is completely flat on the ground, or lined up, at least lined up with the ground. So now back to selecting the three faces again. I'm going to extrude individual. And now you see that I have extruding three individual feet, which you can continue to sculpt later on. So now we have the feet. Okay. So of course the drawing reference is slightly different. You can leave your feet flat and then you can modify it later. Now let's look at the arms. For the arms, the steps for creating the arms is not that different. First I need to identify which of the face I want to pick to form the arms. So let's take a look at the front view. And I think you notice that if you look closely here, you notice that my edge loop actually cuts across where I want the arm to pop out. So I can insert one edge loop here or insert another edge loop here so that I can choose the two faces here to pull out. But I don't want to do that because I do not want to add too much complexity to this already very simple looking model. So I'm gonna go straight ahead. I'm gonna just extrude straight from these two faces. Okay, these two faces are now selected. I'm gonna press E to extrude. Okay, just gonna extrude a small portion, and then I'm gonna press S followed by X and 0 to flatten, and then I'm just gonna pull out this section here, just a tiny portion, and then again I'm gonna use the loop tools, and I'm gonna change it into a circle shape. Okay, and while it's still being selected, I'm gonna press S and then scale it down. And I don't want to have the topology to be twisted like that. So while it's still being selected, and it is lined up nicely with the x-axis, I'll just press R followed by X to just untwist the root area where I want to form the arm. So let me just see whether is it lined up nicely with the arm. Okay, I think that looks good. Okay, then I can continue to press E to extrude. I know that this is a perfectly nice rounded section. And press S to scale it down slightly. Press E again to extrude. Form the wrist. Now, coming to the frog's fingers. So how do you extrude or how do you form fingers from a shape looking like this? We only have two faces here. So how are we going to form at least a four-finger character? I mean, for most cartoon characters, they have four fingers. They don't have a thumb. Okay, the reason is historically it is cheaper to draw less fingers. So actually, during the time of Walt Disney, this is a well-known fact that they, in order to cut costs, they drew all cartoon characters with four fingers rather than five fingers and also five fingers are actually harder to animate. So now, to extrude to form the character with five fingers, or rather four fingers for this character, because I can count from here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to do some creative extrusion here. So first, I'm going to extrude one portion. And then you might have to insert a couple more edge loops so that you can form enough faces to form the fingers. So most likely I will have to insert a couple more edge loops to do that. But actually, I don't want to do that. I want to try this. Okay, you can actually, with the two faces selected, you can press Shift D to duplicate so that you can have another extra set of faces. I want to keep this separate first, and I'm going to get rid of these faces. I'm going to start off with these two faces. Extrude. And then I'm going to press L to select this element and press S to scale it along the y-axis. Okay. And let's see, what can we do? Okay, for the thumb, we can extrude one thumb here. And I'm going to insert a couple of edge loops here. So you see now I have extra faces. To extrude out the fingers. So for the top finger here, I'm going to select these two group of faces. And okay, for this edge loop, I'm going to flatten it first. So press S followed by Y, 0. Same for this edge loop, S, Y, 0. So now I have enough faces to form the fingers. Okay, I'm going to extrude one finger here, scale it down slightly. And these two faces here, I'm going to extrude, scale it down slightly. These two faces, extrude, and scale it down slightly. Then reshape this thumb a little bit. And then for the back here, we're going to figure out how to join the hand back to these faces. Right now, we can see that we have too many vertices here. Okay, so how are we going to join it to this open hole here? Okay, going to show you a trick. Okay, we're going to do something called merging vertices. First, I'm going to delete these faces. Okay, and then, because these are the two extra edge loops that we created, we're going to merge these two vertices together. So Alt-M, merge to the last vertex. And these two, Alt-M, merge to the last vertex. Then I'm going to repeat at the bottom, Alt-M, last vertex, and so on. Alt-M, and then merge at the last vertex. And we can select this open hole here, and we can apply the circle again in Loop Tools to make it into this circular shape. And again, I'm going to rotate it along the x-axis, R followed by X, so that it orients the open hole here. And then you can press S to scale it down. And you can see where I'm going here. I'm going to just connect these two together. So while this open hole is selected, you can Shift Alt right mouse click to select this other open hole. And then you can press W and you can bridge edge loops. And then now you created the hand. Okay, if you see the hand, if the normals are a little bit off, you can select all the faces. And then you can press Control N to flip the normals. So basically, the blocking shape of the character is done. We have the fingers, we have the feet and all that. And then you can turn on the subdivision. Over here, and then you can see what's the end result. And actually, it's looking pretty close. All right, so next is just continue to tweak. Right now, the leg is looking a bit too straight. Okay, let me just turn off the subdivision look first. Control R. Before you do that, go to edit mode first. Press A to deselect. Control R, insert one edge loop right about here. Now, this edge loop, the orientation is looking a bit odd, so I'm going to use scale to help me again. So press S followed by Z0 to flatten the edge loop. Then press G and then move it until it follows the shape of the drawing. Same thing for this section here. Press Control R, insert one edge loop here, then move it up. Then press S. Yes, press S to scale it up. Then move it backwards so they can form this curve. Now, if you want this section here to be narrow, just simply press Control R again to insert another edge loop. Then press S to scale it down so you can gradually sculpt the shape of the foot. Okay, so you can see from the front view, the foot is coming along, or the leg is coming along fine. Okay, there's maybe some adjustments that you do want to do here. And gradually maybe pull this section down. So far, does anyone have any questions to ask about this modeling method? The key here, as I've mentioned, is you have to keep the number of vertices or vertex count low first. You do not want to start off with way too many points. You can see I didn't really have a lot of detail at this with this model at the moment. So I have very few points that I need to worry about. You keep moving the vertices until you can't really move them anymore to match the shape of the reference drawing. Eventually, you will reach a stage where you want to turn on to subdivided look. Okay. And then you also want to turn on the tools, and you want to smooth your character. Of course, the feet right now is looking a little bit flat. Okay, you can go inside and then add a little bit more edge loops, or just adjust the vertices to give his feet a little bit more definition. Okay, and to give him a little bit much flatter feet, you can just insert another edge loop right at the sole of the feet. So go to the top view. Now we don't have any top view reference drawing, but even then you can use your own judgment to sort of sculpt the look. For example, I'm selecting this group of vertices to sculpt it so that it has a much more rounded looking snout. Okay, remember, you can actually enable this. This actually is quite helpful when you're doing this kind of subdivision modeling and you want to really tweak the shape of your organic model until it matches the drawing. And maybe I need another edge loop here, so Control Alt and grab these vertices. I'm wondering, how do I get the snout or at the smile on his face? So that will involve using the knife tool to actually cut extra detail to form the mouth. All right, so if you look at the picture, had this very weird looking smile on his face. So for this, you really need to cut the faces, okay, and really cut the direction and then remodel this section to give it a smile. So for that, we need to study how the edge loop flows. Like for example, it flows down this direction and then it comes right up. So we need to form a channel that actually follows this direction. So to do that, you can use the knife tool. Just press K, and you can start to cut it on the surface. Now to do that successfully, let me just escape from it first. And I'm just going to study this shape carefully first. Okay, so if I cut the loop, it's going to end up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a knife then I'm going to end up with this direction here. And then I'm just going to figure out along the way how I can make this into a four-sided again. Now, notice that for the hands, I broke one of the rules about subdivision modeling, that is not to have triangular faces. But in this case, in order to keep this model simple, I'm going to just leave this triangular face in, right? But the same thing might happen here. So let's just go for it first. I'm going to use my knife tool. Okay, and then I'll try to reflow the smile from here. Okay, let me take a look at his face again. And maybe, okay, so the smile starts from here to here. So I'm going to cut from this vertex. Okay, and then press enter. So you notice I've created this weird looking smile, and then I'm going to attempt to try to fix this, because when I unsubdivide this, okay, you can see that now we created a bunch of, okay, let me just disable this subdivision. We created a bunch of multi-sided face, and this is not very good when you are doing, what do you call that, subdivision modeling. So what we're going to try to do is we will try to figure out a way to reflow this topology. Okay, topology is actually how the line flows on a 3D model. Okay, so we're going to find out a way to see whether we can fix this. Now, for this one is relatively easy to fix. Like from here, we can just cut a line from this vertex to here so that we can form back four-sided faces again. So press K, then cut from here to here, and then press enter. Now we fix this four-sided. We got a four-sided here, I got a five-sided here. I'm going to Control R, insert one edge loop, and then I'm going to use the knife tool and connect this vertex to this vertex. And we fix this edge loop. And now we end up with this one. Okay, that is a three-sided face here. So we want to make this into four-sided. So what I'm going to try to do is Control R. And before I do that, I'm just going to use the knife tool, cut down from here to here, and then press enter. So I create this two triangular faces, and I can go to edge here, X, and then delete the edges. Problem is, if I delete the edges, I'll leave empty with an empty hole. I should be dissolving the edges. I'll keep the face intact. So right now I have a multi-sided face here, and also I got a triangular face here. So all I have to do is press K. Oops, what did I do there? Okay, press K again to bring the knife tool and join these two together. And I have the flow that I want. And also now I have these two triangular faces. I need to select this, then press X and dissolve this edge. Okay, so now you can see I have this line that I've created so that I can form this smile. I can form the smile on this face. So I'm going to move these. I'm going to be using this edge loop here. Go back to select. I'm going to be using this edges up to here to form the mouth. Right, so I'm going to resculpt this area. For edges, you can also press GG to slide it back. Let's slide these back. And these edges here, I'm going to be okay. So now I've formed the the edge loop, or rather the line that I want to form the mouth with. Okay, so it will make it easier for me to just extrude inwards to form the mouth. Okay, if you want to do that, so you can select the edges, From the mouth up to here, I think. And this one, yes. And you can actually use this command called split V. Okay, when you press V, you notice what happens. I actually open up the mouth. Okay, and I think I want to join. Perhaps I want to fix this area first. Okay, so right now I'm taking a look at this topology. Should I join these two? Okay, anyway, I'm going to join these two together first. Alt M. And then I'm going to select this edge and this edge. Then I'm going to extrude inwards if you want. And then you can scale it inwards. And basically you form the mouth for the frog. Now, if you have a problem trying to form this, that's okay. No, as long as you get the general shape. I'm not expecting all of you to create this shape. Now, I understand if you are doing this for the first time, this can be very, very difficult. So my simple request is, if you can model the shape and get your assignment to look like this frog, and also apply the materials correctly, then you'll be fine, right? Right, let me just turn on the subdivision and then see what it looks like. So you can see by cutting and opening up the mouth, right, I got the shape that I want, all right? And right, all I need to do now is just tweak the arms. I get this muscular look. Of course, his hands, shorten his hand and scale down his hands a bit. Of course, his fingers, you need to insert more edge loops and then thicken it up. Now, let me share a secret with you. Now, for the eyes, right, especially the black parts of the eyes, you don't have to try to model it onto the character itself. If possible, all you need to do is just to model a separate small little object, and then you just stick it there. That's what I did for my character. Right? So you don't have to try to model the eye inwards. But for those of you who knows exactly what to do, what you need to do is just select the faces, and then you just press W, and you can use this thing called inset faces. So you can scale in another set of faces, which you can reshape to form the eye using the inset tool. Right, so yeah. And I haven't really shown you guys this yet in that you can actually assign different materials for different parts of the body. Okay, because one of the requirements is that you need to project a logo onto his belly. All right. So let's see what the subsurf looks like. I think we are pretty close. Yeah, of course, there are still plenty of, got a nice little butt there. We still need to tweak a bit in order to get the model to look as nice as possible. And the little material secret which I told you about is that you can create a separate piece for the eye. But how do you apply separate color materials? Okay, which I'm going to show you now. Okay, you can select the faces. Now, if you have, you can use the brush selection and then choose the faces that you want to have a certain color. Okay, for example, the right view, you can press C and then paint over the faces that you want to have a certain color. And because of the way you model, let's say you modeled your character, if you model according to the line drawings, right, you should be able to get your colors to match. So right now I've selected the faces that I wanted to have a certain color. So you can go to material, assign a new material, and we're just going to apply a simple yellow material first. And because right now this model only has one material, so the entire frog is going to turn yellow. Okay, now I'm going to select inverse. Okay, select invert. Okay, which is Control I. So right now the rest of the frog faces are selected. Actually, let me just undo that for a second. I want these faces to be selected, assigned yellow as well. This one. Okay, so that's as close as I can. No, not this one. All right. So Control I to invert the selection, and then we're going to create a new material. So to create a new material, you can click on plus here, the plus sign here, and we're going to change the color. I think we have not created a second material. Okay, we do have the second material, but it is no longer assigned. Let me just do that quickly. Do assign. There it is. So here's the area here. We need to put in the new material here and put the yellow material here. So now this object can carry two different materials. So I'm going to assign these group of faces the yellow material. So now I can see the rest of the frog is assigned with the green material. Maybe I forgot to select this, deselect these faces just now, but you can fix it by selecting the color and reassigning those selected faces. That's how you assign different colors to your model. Okay, let's say you want to create the whites. So for the same thing here, you just select the faces that you want to assign the whites. Add another new material in this box here, and then assign a new material. Now we have the white material, and then just assign it. Okay. And if your whites are not big enough, you can always tweak your model. You get it. Okay, use the edge slide tool. Press GG twice. Do that. Now, if you cannot get it exactly that you want, you can maybe create another eye white separately and then just stick it behind it. All right, that's fine. Okay, so now once you are done, you might want to project, let's say, the logo on his tummy. So how do you do that? Now we can't do that now with this model because this model is only half a model. Face here, we can assign. Okay, so how do we do that? So we need to apply the mirror. Go ahead and apply the mirror in object mode. So once you apply the mirror, the object or your model becomes a single object, right? So how do we put the logo in front? Okay, so we have to do something called UV unwrap. Okay, normally this one is reserved for the materials lesson. Okay, but I'm going to show you quickly how to do that. We have to do a simple UV unwrap. Right? So go ahead and select the character and select the faces that you want the logo to appear. So let me just press U to UV, and then you can use something called project from view. And then if you go to your image editor, you'll notice that it has this section that has been UV projected. And we can actually apply another material or another texture on top of it. Okay, so I don't have the logo with me. Okay, let me just Google quickly for the logo. We have about 10 minutes left, so we still have a little bit of time. This is SUSS. So SUSS logo. Okay, something's wrong with the internet now. So SUS logo. There you go. So I'm going to save this image. No, not like that. So save as, let me just go and view the image first. Save image as, it's a GIF image. I don't want to save it. Nah, doesn't matter. I'm going to save it as a GIF image. That's fine. And now I'm going to assign a new material for this section here. So go back to the material section. I'm going to create a new material. Assign a new material. And I'm going to the texture portion and create a new texture. Texture is an image. And then I'm going to find the image, which is on my desktop. And let's see whether it accepts GIF images. So unfortunately, it doesn't accept GIF images. I'm going to find another image that is not a GIF logo. Let's see. Okay, this is a JPEG. This will work. So hopefully I can find the logo. Okay, now I have the logo. And let's see what it looks like. Okay. And I'm going to preview the logo. And then I'm going to scale this section until it matches the projection on the logo itself. Right now, we are not seeing anything because we need to turn on the texture. And the light is in the wrong position. Just going to try to put it in front. Yes, I have not specified the UV on this character yet. So that's why we are not seeing the texture there. Okay, so let's go to the material and assign the material. And if we go to texture, now I can see the texture. However, let me just do a test render. Oops. You need to go to the camera view, change the camera view so we can see everything. And I'm going to do a test render and then see. And then that's how you get the texture to appear. Now, if you want the yellow to appear consistent with the rest of the yellow, then perhaps you want to sample the color that you created for your frog. And right now, because we only have one light source, I'm going to just duplicate the lights or reposition the lights. Lighting is covered in another lesson, but I'm just going to duplicate the lights so that we have 3 different lights. And then we can have a preview of what the frog looks like with the texture. Okay, essentially I've tried to show you guys as much as I can on how to do this model. Now for the second part of the assignment, which is modeling the hawker store or the hawker vehicle with the half bicycle thingy, I already created the tutorial on how to create the bicycles. Now for the rest of that, the hawker stand, okay, I think it is quite straightforward to figure out because most of the other parts are simple primitive like boxes and simple shapes, which I think you all should be able to figure out. Okay, but right now I've already shown you guys how you can model this this frog character here. Now as for what I mentioned earlier on, if you want to create or the blacks, right, you can do another inset to create another black, or you can just press Shift D, duplicate another face, and then scale this face down a little bit, and then assign another material, which is black. All right, and then just assign it to this face. And you still get, well, a somewhat similar result. Face, I'm going to duplicate another piece. apply Alt M, no, Control M along the x-axis. Yeah, that is to flip it so that we have this blacks. So granted, I've modeled this character in quite a rush, right? So if it takes me like this, I guess about 1 hour to do this, it probably take you guys a few hours to do this. All right. So that's how you model the Michigan frog. At least one way which you can model the Michigan frog. So don't be too concerned about this edge loop thing, because I think this is still quite advanced information for you all. But try your best to get the shape as close as you can to the design, or at least to the drawing. Okay. So thanks to Anchi for finding the image. If you can download this image and save it onto your computer, and then use that as your reference to model this this assignment. And take note, you're supposed to save your work in progress. So please save it regularly. Well, as long as you put in the logo. If you never put in the MTD201, that's fine. But of course, if you can match it exactly to the assignment, that'll be a bonus. Okay. But at least I want to see that you can put in UV projection. Use the UV projection to put in the texture, right? We will talk about more of that in the next virtual class lesson, right? All right, I haven't. One student asked me, like, how do I put in the assignments onto, let's say, Word? Okay, so I'm going to show you quickly first. I know that it's already 10 o'clock, but I'm just going to explain how you can do that. For example, let me just save this file first. Save as a on the desktop. Call this Froggy. Okay, so now I have the file saved here. You can see on my desktop. Okay, if you cannot see on Collaborate, please use the YouTube stream to see. And I'm going to zip this up. Okay, let's say you have a document, or let's say you're doing a report, whatever. You can zip it up to make the file smaller. So in this case, I'm using 7-zip, by the way. So I'm using 7-zip to compress the file. So right now I have it in a Froggy zip file. Then go and create a new Word document. Okay, so I believe the Canvas system only accept Word documents. So to submit, you just drag your zip file onto your Word document. Okay, once it's inside the Word document, you can save. Okay, of course, you must save it according to a naming convention properly. All right, let me just save it on the desktop. Now this is very important. You need to make sure you all do this properly. Usually it's your student name and your number or IC number or your student number and so on. Okay, please refer to your TMA. Right at the bottom of the TMA, there is submission instructions. Okay, so once you saved it into a document, then this is the document that you submit onto your Canvas. It's no longer Blackboard. All right. So make sure you do it this way. And as for your, if you want to submit your work in progress, you can actually combine all the 3 files and put in a zip file, and then drop it into the Word document this way. Okay. So if you're not clear about this process, you can ask me again, or you can just rewind the YouTube stream video and just see how I do it again. Yeah, I hope that is clear to everybody. And as usual, we have come to the end of tonight's lesson. Okay, thanks for the 20 odd students who stayed with me throughout. Okay, I hope tonight's lesson is fruitful and useful for all of you. I know that I've covered quite a lot of advanced stuff here, but try your best to finish your two assignments for your TMA, and I'm sure that most of you should be able to get the job done. Okay, so if there is no questions from any one of you, okay, I'm going to end the session now. And actually, you guys are free to leave anytime. I'm going to hang around for the next 5 minutes or so for anyone who have any questions. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your thank you wishes. Marcus, I think that image reference just now Anchi found, I think that is the best image reference that's available. Yeah, so if Marcus, if you can use the image from Anchi, I think that is the best reference. You can just rewind this YouTube live stream and then see how I set up everything. Yeah, feel free to watch it later on. Everything is recorded on YouTube live stream, and I think the playback is much smoother compared to, unfortunately, from my experience using Collaborate. Okay, I already sent out the link on WhatsApp, so just go back and click on that link. I'll be posting the same link on Canvas. I'll stay on for another couple of minutes, then I'll be logging out myself. So meanwhile, I'll just update the link on Canvas. Yes, Jessica, as long as it looks like the picture. In fact, the closer it is, the better. All right, everybody. Thank you all again. I'm going to be logging out soon. And I hope to see you again next week. I believe it's the next couple of weeks is going to be the same virtual class session as well. So I'll see you all next week. And thank you very much and have a pleasant evening.